It's remarkable how a literary character can continue to be beloved around the world over 100 years after he was first brought into readers' homes. Peter Rabbit is one such creation, as his book remains a favorite among children and new takes on the character continue to appear. Created by Beatrix Potter, his backstory is just as interesting as the adventures he had on the page. He was inspired by a pet rabbit named Peter, who Potter had as a child. As an adult, she would often write illustrated letters to children that also contained stories. Her realistic-looking drawings of clothed animals won over these first fans, and she was inspired to extend the tale of Peter Rabbit into a book. In the book, Peter is a young bunny who trespasses Mr. McGregor's garden despite the warnings of his mother. What follows are his constant run-ins with McGregor as he tries to escape the garden without being turned into a pie like his father. This first book did a wonderful job of establishing Peter's personality and the world he inhabited, which was inspired by the Lake District, the lovely region in North England where Beatrix Potter resided. Despite the book's immediate charms, she was unable to find a publisher, and took it upon herself to self-publish the book in 1901, initially printing 250 copies. These proved very successful and sparked renewed interest from the publishing house Frederick Warne & Company. Potter initially refused their suggestion to colorize illustrations until she realized they probably had a point. Frederick Warne published the book in October 1902, and it was an enormous success. This, of course, led to more stories involving Potter's animal creations. The tale of Benjamin Bunny picks up immediately after the tale of Peter Rabbit, with Peter following his cousin back to McGregor's garden to retrieve his clothes, including his signature blue jacket. There were, of course, books where Peter was not the focus, like the tale of Mrs. Tiggywinkle, the tale of Mr. Jeremy Fisher, and the tale of Johnny Townmouse. However, she would also still check in on Peter from time to time, as she provided a few glimpses at his adult years. In addition to being a talented writer and illustrator, Beatrix Potter also recognized the merchandising possibilities that could come from Peter Rabbit. She produced toys, board games, and other material based on the story that also proved popular among British children. One snag did hit the property when the books made their way to the United States. Frederick Warne did a shoddy job with the copyright when releasing the books in America, and that led to unauthorized books and merchandising which Potter could not do anything about. American authors even wrote Peter Rabbit stories of their own without having to pay royalties to Potter. With the success of these stories, it's not surprising that there have been a number of adaptations over the years. Walt Disney had actually shown interest in making a movie based on the tale of Peter Rabbit, but Potter turned it down as she felt her stories did not lend themselves to being animated. Of course, Peter Rabbit did eventually make his way to animation. In 1991, HBO produced an animated adaptation for their storybook musical series, with a narration by Carol Burnett. This special stayed fairly faithful to the story, although the characters were Americanized and given new designs. There were also songs which existed to just pad the runtime. They even give a musical number to McGregor's white cat, who appeared only briefly in the book. The special definitely went for a more cutesy vibe, which I'm not sure Beatrix Potter would have been okay with. For me, the definitive adaptation of Peter Rabbit came from the BBC series The World of Peter Rabbit and Friends. The show was directed by Diane Jackson and produced by John Coase, who had previously made the animated short The Snowman. Great care was taken to make the animation look like Potter's illustrations and keep the scripts largely faithful. The show really felt like the stories brought to life, capturing the thrills, lessons, beauty, and charm of the books. The episodes also had live-action bookends, featuring Beatrix Potter painting with the animals and accompanied by its unforgettable theme tune. I think it could show the world of Peter Rabbit and Friends to anyone of any age, and there's a good chance they will be captivated. In 2012, the preschool series Peter Rabbit started airing on Nickelodeon. I watched a few episodes, and it seems to center on Peter helping out the other critters in the Lake District. He often goes on adventures with Benjamin Bunny and a new character named Lily. The show also sprinkles in Beatrix Potter's other characters, including Peter's sisters Flopsy and Mopsy, although they curiously make Cottontail a lot younger in the show. This is definitely aimed at a young audience, but it's harmless enough in its presentation, and the computer animation is actually quite well done. In 2012, Frederick Warne decided to celebrate the 110th anniversary of Peter Rabbit by having Emma Thompson write a few new books. I've not had a chance to read these books, but Thompson does seem like a fitting choice to continue in Potter's footsteps. Meanwhile, Sony Pictures acquired the rights to make a Peter Rabbit movie, with Will Gluck hired to direct and co-write the film. When the trailer was released, the response was not the most positive, and I want to take a moment to address this. It's one thing to be disinterested in a movie. That's fine. However, I saw the most disgusting and repugnant remarks made towards Gluck, based purely on the marketing materials. People were hurling some really horrible insults towards him before the film had even been released. These complaints were horrifying to read, and made me very disappointed that people would stoop that low. I know I don't often get angry, but I certainly did, seeing what people were saying about Will Gluck for incredibly trivial reasons. The interesting thing is the movie he directed is clearly made by someone with a lot of respect for Potter's stories, and it made for a fun modern update. In the book, Peter was a disobedient bunny who got into trouble, and that's depicted in the film, where he's now voiced by James Corden. The timeline of the movie reveals Peter's mother is long gone, and so his behavior is now unchecked, hence why he's a bit more of a party animal and troublemaker here. Gluck includes a lot of visual nods to the books too. When we first see Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, they are picking blackberries, just like they did in The Tale of Peter Rabbit. Peter's altercation with Mr. McGregor early on borrows a number of scenes from the book, and when Thomas, McGregor's great-nephew, is looking for Peter underneath some flower pots, that's also taken from the book. Many of the animal characters from Potter's other stories also pop up in the movie. The animators at Animal Logic did an excellent job of translating the animals into computer-animated characters, and the film even includes some beautiful hand-drawn sequences that emulate Potter's drawing style. The movie is also set in the Lake District, although it was actually filmed in Australia, and Rose Byrne's character Bee is an obvious tribute to Beatrix Potter. I found the writing to be very smart and funny, and even self-referential at times, and that added to the enjoyment. However, in between the comedy, there's also solid development for both Peter Rabbit and Thomas McGregor. The film depicts them as in the right about certain things, but also calls them out for their behavior and the way they treat each other. Thus, the movie has a solid message about compromise and trying to find the best middle ground. Despite the naysayers and cynics before release, Peter Rabbit did extremely well at the box office, and was even the #1 movie in the UK for 4 straight weekends. Unsurprisingly, there's now a sequel on the way, titled Peter Rabbit 2: The Runaway, and I'm really looking forward to it. It was actually supposed to open this weekend, but it was postponed for, well, you know the reason. In conclusion, Peter Rabbit has deservedly maintained his place as one of the most popular and cherished characters in children's literature. Beatrix Potter created an icon who will never be forgotten anytime soon. See you next time.